Okay, I'm just keeping an eye, everybody, on the participant waiting room, just making sure no one's waiting. So I've got that pinned on my screen until we get started. Yes, if anyone knows, is Ross Johnston meant to be in this group? Because at the moment I'm marking, I believe it's a him, or him or her, I'm not sure. But I'm marking this member of staff as absent for the last two sessions unless we have any further information. I will probably send a separate email to Ross just asking if everything's okay or is he meant to be in the session or not. So I'm just going to make a note of that now. Send an email to Ross Johnston. Okay, everybody, I make it 12:30, so we will now press on with the information. Can I just ask now, is everybody in who should be in? Dorette, Joe, Josh, Liz, Matthew, Natasha, Paula, Shirley, Siobhan, Tarek, Thomas, Vicky, Zabia. I think everyone's here, I believe, but I will keep a check on the participant waiting room thing as well. And yeah, I've just had some communication with Julie Chamberlain over the lunch hour. I'm not sure what's happened with my email not going through, even though it was sent on the Monday, soon after I finish. That's what I tend to do. I send my emails out more or less within half an hour of finishing off a session, so I complete all of my admin. So I'm not sure what happened there, but those of you who provided me with alternative emails, I've added you on my email list. And if any of you want to do that as well, please by all means do. But I'm hoping internally the college will then look at my email and make sure that you will get the information. All right then. Fantastic. All right then. What you can do, everybody, is if you've not received anything, say by Thursday evening, then just do some, just try to get in touch with me if you can, all right, or through another colleague, or send me an email through a different email account. Okay, so just try and get in touch. If you've not received anything by Thursday evening, then there must be a problem with the one I send more or less after the last session. All right, so please do that. It's so important. I'm also wary of the fact, guys, that obviously some of you probably would have missed the first part of the session. So I'm just going to very briefly just go through what I talked about before we go into the additional learning needs SEND part of this course. What I want to do is I just want to just very quickly go over some of the key things that I mentioned at the start of this morning session. And it's really about getting people just kind of cognizant of the fact that the presentations are going to be in a week's time. Normally, we don't tend to do this kind of talk until probably after the third session, but obviously this is a fast track program, so it's quite intensive. So, we're doing it in a shorter space of time. So please be mindful that if you can do your 5-7 minute presentation, which you're required to do in a group, 3 to 4 people, or in pairs, or if it's only individually you can do them, that's absolutely fine. But please by Tuesday morning next week, before the day 4 starts, if I can just get a kind of an idea of what groups you've put yourself in, or if you're doing them individually, so I can just get a running order, agree with everybody who's going first, second, third for the session 10, which is when the presentations will get done, which is going to be from 12:30. And also, can you please note that session 10, it may last until 3 o'clock, because more normally we tend to give about 15-20 minutes per group, 5-7 minutes each per person. And then we normally allow for about 10-15 minutes for a post-presentation discussion. So then we can talk about the content and offer feedback and other ideas as well in terms of sharing good practice. All right. So that's going to be for next week. So start thinking about it now, because if you can start thinking about maybe incorporating some of the ideas that you've picked up from the course, and it should definitely be linked to the new specs, because it is about delivering the new functional skills specifications. And if you wanted to cover more than one area, I mean, it may well be you want to cover speaking, listening with reading, or with writing, or reading and writing, or you want to cover some of the SPAG elements. It's really up to you, okay? And obviously within that, you'll then go into more of the actual detail about methodology, techniques, resources, different learners' needs and how you'd meet them, etc., etc., etc. All right. So guys, please note then, when we start the day 4, which is going to be on Tuesday morning, I need to get some idea of the groupings. You don't have to tell me what you're doing. That's something that obviously we'll agree and sort out when we start day 5. Okay. So by day 5 in the morning, I'll have a little list really from everybody as to what they're going to be covering, the main kind of topic. Because I know people's minds might change and things happen in between sessions. But I just need to know who is going to be in groups and who isn't on the start of day 4, and then by start of day 5, what topic you've chosen, and then you'll then do the delivery in the afternoon. Okay, are there any questions about the presentation? Just thought I'd do a very, very quick thing. All right then, guys. Okay, so anyway, I've included this this slide. I've included this slide at the beginning of this session, additional learning needs, and also the beginning of the morning one. So please do read through it. And again, do come back to me in between the sessions. Do send me an email, something you're not sure about. Please do send me any kind of communication relating to the course that you're not sure about, because that way then we can just keep that communication fluid and make sure that, you know, everyone's clear about everything. Okay then, right, now this session is basically going into...
Sorry, Sunil.
Hello. Oh, hi, yes.
Zubia is saying that your camera is off.
Oh, sorry, let me just...
I can see your camera. I can see you.
I can...
I can see you as well.
Can you see me? Can you see me now?
I can see you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. That's amazing. Fantastic. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay. Right. Now we're going to now go into a deep dive now into looking at additional learning needs and SEND within the context of functional skills English new specs. Okay. So before we go further, can you ask yourself, what do you already know about this subject? What practical strategies do you use to support your learners? Okay, you know, those who may have been diagnosed as dyslexic, may have dyspraxia, they may have some, you know, they may be on the spectrum in terms of autism, maybe attention deficit syndrome. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you know about the subject, what you've used as a teacher to help students with additional learning needs. You know, who would I talk about this if I was stuck? Okay, in terms of, you know, if you were not sure about how to teach a dyslexic student or how to teach a student with dyspraxia, what would you do? And and also, what do I want to find out? You know, what do I want to find out about this area that will help me as a teacher? So can you please jot down some notes in the chat? I've got the chat open, so as the comments start coming in, we'll start looking at things. We'll then start having a discussion before we move on to the content. So let me hear from you guys first. Okay, let's have a look. Right, okay. So, Dorette, I work largely with students with autism. Okay, and all the other areas you mentioned at one time. Joe said we had to supply resources on different shades of paper. Now we encourage the use of overlays for independence. Yes, save tutor time. Some say that overlays don't work. Any advice? We'll come on to that. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Shirley's saying, I talk to the student privately to find out how they learn best and what they find hard. Brilliant. Timeout for ADHD. Okay, is that a strategy? Or, oh, right, to give them time out. You mean for them to have a bit of a break in the learning? Is that what you mean, Liz? Okay, or is it a name of a strategy? Zubia said, I work with the SLDD areas, so a variety of needs to support. Okay, fair play. Vicky saying, I refer to my individual reports on learners to put things in place. I build confidence. Absolutely, really important. Paula, you're saying, I liaise with the dyslexic specialist at college. I give all my learners a notebook to create a personal dictionary at the beginning of each lesson, write buzzwords of the day on the whiteboard and ask them to write the word and the meaning daily in their notebook. Very good example of ownership as well. And, you know, self-enabling learning, really good. Siobhan said, if I was stuck, I talked to the student to see what was worked well for them in the past, support workers, Senko colleagues, the British Council ESTL resources. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I print everything, I think print, yeah, Shirley, on a variety of colours, because in GCSE they need to have at least 2 overlays and the college doesn't provide that. Okay, right. In my department, we have student profiles of how they learn best and what support they need, and try to keep background noise down. Yes, Tarek, that's important. That's really interesting there, what you've said there. Any other points, guys? This is amazing stuff. Talk with the learner, find out what works for them. Brilliant. Good. Anything else? Okay, if it comes up, no worries, we'll have a look. Fantastic. What we're going to do now, guys, obviously in this session, we're going to be looking at identifying barriers to English learning for learners who have additional learning needs, you know, specific to the actual difficulty that they've got, they're experiencing. Develop an understanding of specific learning difficulties, dyslexia in particular, and their impact on English learning, and develop approaches to supporting functional skills English and building inclusion. And I think, guys, a lot of the strategies you've already mentioned is all about building inclusion and making sure they feel part of the actual learning environment. And unfortunately, lots of students may well have had quite negative learning experiences before they come into a post-16 environment. So not only do they have those difficulties, but they may well be exacerbated by poor learning experiences, or maybe not having their needs addressed properly. And we're not saying that everybody here in this group, that we want people to become specialists in this area, but the more information and knowledge that we have, the more we can do for our learners. And I know from my own experience, I mean, having been in post-16 for 27 years, that, you know, when I qualified as a young graduate teacher for post-16 in 1993, I believe now there are a lot more students who are displaying a range and a depth of learning difficulties, more so than there were at that time. So there's more and more things that we need to be aware of, we need to do. And I'm not saying here that we will provide all the solutions for our students doing English, because some of you mentioned other colleagues, pastoral support, coaches, Senko, etc. There may well be other, identifying with this area of work. We do need to work as a team within the English department, but also outwards as well, in terms of helping and supporting that's the student, and sometimes using a, you know, holistic approach. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about in this session, they may not be part and parcel of your standard itinerary for English language teaching, but there are things to bear in mind in terms of, you know, adding a few things or making some adjustments. So we give that, you know, equality of opportunity for every single student, regardless if they've got difficulties or not. Okay, right, amazing, fantastic. Right, guys, do you all like doing quizzes? Yes or no? Who likes doing quizzes? Not pub quizzes, any quiz. Paula says no. Oh, well, thank you for honesty there, Paula. Vicky saying yes. Okay, fantastic. All right, guys. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through 4 slides, but the content is going to be transitioned in each slide. And as I click the information, basically then I'm going to ask people to identify, well, you can identify it now if you like, which specific learning difficulty does this describe? So I'm going to go through some of the attributes, all right, of this difficulty, that if you were to identify somebody as being a dyslexic student, these are the attributes that you'd normally find, you know, attributes or behaviors or however which you want to call them. So please, can you write your answer in the chat box as I go through the attributes, okay? So which specific learning difficulty does this describe? Here we go, okay? Sensitivity to noise, poor social skills, phobias, perseverance, social immaturity, poor sense of time, difficulty with abstract thought, poor comprehension. Do we have any answers? Let's see what people are saying. Autism, ADH. There may well be some crossovers here, by the way. So this is not hard and fast, but it's just to give you a general idea. Right. This is the autistic spectrum disorder. Okay. ASD, as it's called. Okay. I think some of you mentioned ASD. All right. So sensitivity to noise, poor comprehension, social immaturity, poor sense of time, phobias, poor social skills, difficulty with abstract thought, and then also persevering with things. Now, obviously, when I read out these attributes, then for me as a teacher, it then heightens my own understanding and raises my own consciousness levels as to what capacity I can work with and things that I can't make. I'm going to make sure that whatever I teach them, it's not going to put them in an anxiety zone, or it's not going to make them connect with the information. So all these things I'll be taking into account as I'm planning my lessons for students. All right then, so let's go for number 2 then. So there are 3 more to go. So which specific learning difficulty does this describe? Distractibility, impulsivity, inconsistency, poor comprehension, disorganization, poor sense of time. What did we do there? This is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So what did people get? Let's have a look. Yeah, I think most of you got that. Yeah, ADHD. All right. So I take it with the speed at which you got those and the accuracy that a lot of you are familiar with these, you know, with these attributes that you'll tend to find this. And again, you know, students with attention deficit, again, I don't know, guys, what you feel about, but I find in post 16, there are lots more people are having this now, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And again, you know, I mean, okay, it may well warrant the question as to, well, how come it's increasing, or, you know, are there more environmental factors in play here as opposed to just the internal or genetic ones, or whatever it might be. So, you know, we're going to talk about things like neurodiversity in a short while, because that's important to have a very balanced view about this. But again, you know, if we know these to be some of the common attributes and the classic ones, poor sense of time, being very impulsive, inconsistent, then again, we can approach it in 2 ways. We can obviously be proactive, that if we know we're going to be teaching students with ADHD, then we can then start to plan things in advance and have things ready for our students. And so we can then actually plan, you know, accordingly. And that's going to be really, really important. Okay, right. Okay, fantastic. So let's just move on to the next one. Clumsiness, stuttering, difficulty with handwriting, impulsivity, disorganization, inconsistency. So have a think about that. Sorry about that. I had to attend to something at the door. Sorry about that. Okay, right. Have we got dyspraxia for that one? Let's have a look. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm back now. There was something I had to do. Okay, right. Okay, right. Cerebral palsy. All right. So basically, this comes under dyspraxia. Okay. Clumsiness, impulsivity, stuttering, difficulty with handwriting, disorganization, inconsistency. Then we'll do one more. Okay. Poor sense of time. Left-right confusion. Poor rote learning. Poor short-term memory. Inconsistency. Poor comprehension. There's one more. Yeah. Poor sequencing. Any thoughts there? Symbol reversals. Yeah, we're getting dyslexia. Yeah, this one is dyslexia, okay? So that's poor sense of time, poor rote learning, symbol reversals, left-right confusion, poor comprehension, poor short-term memory, and inconsistency. Now, at this point, there was a question about overlays, okay? Using overlays for teaching. Could you just tell me what your thoughts are about using overlays, okay, with students? What is uppermost in your mind when we're talking about overlays? What thoughts are going through your mind there in terms of using overlays for teaching? Is this standard practice? Is this what's expected? Is this what helps the learners? Are there any issues with using it? Yeah. Can be distraction technique. That's interesting, Joe. Okay, right. Now that's interesting because I tend to find that, again, with some students with additional learning needs, sometimes using obviously the white paper can be a big, massive distraction for some learners. So just using like buff colored paper tends to help. But if you haven't got that, then overlays, they are really, really good. They can really be extremely helpful. They can be too small, get scratched and dirt, obvious that they have a problem. Yeah, okay, that's fine, Shirley. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Zabia. Some students are embarrassed about using them. It's just that it's about, just making sure that everyone understands that, people will have different ways of supporting their learning. And if they need to use an overlay, that's absolutely fine. But there are also a huge other, within the SLDD department, there are lots of, like electronic readers and things like that they can use, and that's really, it's about making it acceptable for everyone. That this is what a person needs to use to help them, and everyone needs something to help them. And for certain students, they may need other things like overlays and little gadgets to help them along. But colored paper is good. Yeah, that one is good if it is available. If it's available in the budget, then that's fantastic. Really, really good stuff. Okay, then, right. Now, guys, now tell me this then. So out of the four then, we've got dyslexia, dyspraxia, we've got the autism, then we've also got the attention deficit syndrome as well. Tell me, guys, which of those tend to be more dominant within your sessions when you're looking at the additional learning needs of your students who come to your sessions? And those, and those who have additional learning difficulties, which of those do you think tends to dominate, which tends to be the more pronounced need, your students? Okay, so some saying, yeah, autism, dyslexia, yeah, combination, yeah. Dyslexia does tend to come up quite a bit. Yeah, autism as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, ADHD, autism, that's coming across. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you, guys. That's amazing. Okay, and we're gonna now move on now. Now, I'd like you to have a little think about these these two terms, because they will, you know, give us a better understanding of some of the complexities within additional learning needs when we're trying to understand them. We're trying to, you know, work with our learners effectively. We're trying to choose the best possible techniques without drawing attention to the difficulty, making it acceptable and working with it the best way we can. So any thoughts on what you think neurotypical means and neurodiverse in this context? Any thoughts there? Anything on the chat you want to add? That's fine, Natasha. That's okay. No worries. It's okay. I'm recording this, so you'll get a recording. No worries. That's fine. So neurotypical, neurodiverse. Any thoughts there, guys? Feel free to write it in the box. Everyone's different. Never heard. That's fine. Normal, different. Neurodiverse means that they don't learn in a way we might expect. They need a different approach. Okay. All right, guys, that's great. Okay, fine. Let's go with neurotypical first. Okay. So neurotypicals make about 99% of the population. So they're everywhere. It's very likely that you know neurotypicals and you probably have at least one neurotypical in your family. While there is no widely accepted diagnostic test, neurotypicals are fairly easy to spot once you know what you're looking for. And it's often referred to people who are not on the autism spectrum. It's a bit of a mashup of the words neurologically typical and is often shortened to NT, okay? And with regards to people with neurotypicality, they tend to communicate in a very vague manner. They make guesses as to the level of knowledge of the listener. And amid part, the listener is presumed to know. It's rather obvious that this guessing will often be wrong. So as I'm reading this out, guys, do you have any learners who are within this kind of scope? Neurotypicality. As is usually the case with neurotypicals, image and status is more important than effective communication. And the truth in general, communication between neurotypicals is very limited in this way, and the fear of being seen as stupid prevents either party from verifying the content of the conversation. As such, most miscommunication goes undetected. Right. Any thoughts on what I've just read out, guys? Most of, yes, everyone's saying yes. Most of my 150. Fantastic. Okay. So let me ask you, well done. Thank you, Dorette. Amazing. Tell me then, so what do you do then in terms of helping students within this scope then? So what tends to work then? What works for you? Any thoughts and ideas? Please put them in the chat box. They communicate in a vague manner. Image is very important, more so than effective communication. So it's the communication that's an issue. So set short targets. Excellent, Thomas. Thank you. Clarify. Ask them to clarify. So what did I say? Really good. I'm thinking out loud here, that I'm just thinking that with neurotypicals, I'm just wondering whether the Feynman technique would work, because the Feynman technique does encourage students to focus in and home in on verbal recount, which requires them to listen carefully. So that might be a way forward. Again, I'd welcome your thoughts. Repetition, recap, yes. Open questions, clarify learning. Kathy Thomas, is that one of your colleagues? Not sure who that is. Find the best way of learning from the onset, what they like, interested in, and use to engage with them. I mean, again, you tend to find that when you have learners who are displaying certain attributes and you feel that they may well be in a certain scope for you to do additional work, then invariably you'll find that you might need to do more work with them initially to find out more about how they learn. Because I think you've mentioned that, guys, from the beginning. It's how they like to learn, what works for them. And that's really important. Now, I myself, I mean, through the English Speaking Board, I'm also an assessor for students who are within the SEND category. So I go to residential colleges up and down the country, work with SEND learners and their teachers, and they do things like oral communication skills, or they do speaking skills for employability. Okay, and that way then the teachers do use all these different techniques. And also as an assessor, it's perfectly in order for me to ask people to repeat things, or just to go through them again, or just try and get a sense of what they've said. As long as I can gauge the essence of it, then it's fine. But sometimes if it's not comprehensible to anybody, there's no harm in just asking them to repeat, or just give them the options. I tend to find what works with SEND learners is the funks questions. You know, I sometimes, you know, be quite, you know, animated. Is it A? Is it this? Is it a house, or is it an office? Is it house, office? You know, and things of that nature, without being, you know, being inappropriate about it, but just being a little bit, get them to draw in a bit more, so then you know what they're saying is absolutely fine. So yes, good rapport, teaching in small chunks, that's so important. You see, things like task-based learning, which you've already gone through, that is going to be too much for a lot of the learners. You may have to use a mastery approach, okay? A mastery approach is where the task isn't at the end, but then you got all the sequential steps. So if you're asking an entry level 3 student to be able to write a message or something, then you've got to start from the beginning. So I would be using the PPP approach, okay? Which is present, get them to practice, and then for them to be able to produce it, to be able to do it. So if you want them to be able to use particular words in a conversation, present those words, get them to practice it, and then get them to do a little bit of, you know, dialogue and answers and questions, and then they do it in a little role play, okay? Yes, I think short-timed activities, very good, Liz, building safe, non-judgmental learning environments to reduce fear. A lot of this is really about making sure the learner in this scope feels completely comfortable. If anything, that's what has to be done right before you can engage them in learning, okay? So to make sure that everybody feels, now for me, when I go into a residential college with SEND students, as a SEND specific residential college that parents send their children to, then as an examiner, the way we've been trained is that we're not going to start the exam straight away, Sunil. We're going to be welcoming them at the door, smiles, we're going to be shaking hands, we're going to be getting to know them, let them ask you questions about who you are and where you're from, get that rapport going, and then we take a seat, and then we start the process. So it could well be within about 20 minutes, we then get started. And that's fine, because that works for learners. And in the end, the learners get the things done. And then it's about trying to find the best approach, what really fits. But yeah, fantastic. Okay, guys. So let's now look at, oh, what's happened here? Right. Let's now look at neurodiversity. Okay. Now, this is a concept where neurological differences are to be recognized and respected as any other human variation. These differences can include those labeled with dyspraxia, dyslexia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyscalculia, autism spectrum, Tourette syndrome, and others, okay? Now, there is a link, we put a link here to the elements of neurodiversity. So these are the things that when we did the quiz, we were mostly looking at the actual scope of neurodiversity. And obviously, as we said, we obviously look at, you know, we deal with students who are in the kind of neurodiverse paradigm so much, okay? And it's about what we understand by each one and what we need to do. We're coming out with some really good ideas. At this point, what I want to do, are there any questions about anything, guys, about neurotypicals and neurodiverse, anything there? I'm just going to now take us away from this and then put another document on. Let me just have a look and see. Right, okay, right. Okay, guys, now what tends to work really well, oh, let me just, something's happened with the share. Sorry, guys, let me just find what I'm looking for. Here we go. Right, got it. Okay. Oh, let me just check that no one's in the waiting room. No, I think we're all here. Fabulous. Okay, guys, any more chat? No. Okay, right. So at this point, we're just going to go through a little case study. We've got a few of them in this session because I think it's really important that we look at individual students and some of the issues and what we would normally be doing for them as well. Okay, so for example, thank you, Josh. So Naz is in your class. It's just before half term in October, and he still hasn't produced any work. You have put up with it, but you can't leave it any longer. His lack of participation is now affecting others in the group. What can you do? Right, any thoughts on this? So I need you to sort of get some ideas going. What can we do? One-to-one progress review? Yes, that's great. I always find that one-to-ones, my goodness, if you withdraw, oh dear, Vicky, one-to-one chat, work out what's going on, arrange yeah, we're all coming at one-to-ones, my gosh. Vicky 111. Give Naz options. Yeah, positively. Yeah, be positive. That's true. Yeah, one-to-ones. Now, this is something. Tell me, guys, do you have any time? I'm sorry to ask this loaded question or an explosive question. I know I'm talking with my post-16 colleagues. Do you get any time to do one-to-ones with learners in any shape, whether it's tutorial, whether it's catch-up, revision? Because I know with timing and utilization, this, that, and the other in the post-16 algorithms, it's not always possible. But tell me, do you get time to do any one-to-ones? Or do you find that when you are in the class, say with face-to-face teaching, do you then find yourself doing like round robins, that you give them you give like an overall task to the whole group, you then have to round robin, and then you then have to then step in and become almost like a one-to-one tutor in that group? Is that what you tend to, because for me personally, what really worked for me when I used to do lots of face-to-face in colleges or prison was to spend time walking around, observing, okay, having the chat, sitting at the same level as them, being aware of my non-verbals and my eye contact, and just trying to, you know, just not lean forward, but just lean back and just give them time just to talk. Yeah, tutorial time. Even if it means having that 5-minute conversation, it may well mean that there may be 2 or 3 learners who are like this, and it may well be an investment in your time and your planning, lesson planning, is to do the round robins and go around, and then you are planning that conversation with Naz, with Joe, with Swaranjit, or whoever the student is, okay? Because that one-to-one is valuable. It really is valuable. If we can do one-to-ones. Now, I don't know whether I heard in the news that there is some kind of online service. I don't know if it's done privately or through schools, I don't know, where there is a recognition now that lots and lots of learners need one-to-one. Hey, yippee, you know, in schools and colleges, that one-to-one teaching is highly valuable, okay? Now, obviously, ordinarily, people would pay for that service, but there is huge benefit in the one-to-one-ness in a teaching situation. So for me personally, one-to-one work is part of my itinerary as a teacher of a group, if I can. But I understand if you've got big groups. Tell me about your class sizes, guys. Is this a rude question? Normally, on average, how many students, for those who are teaching discrete functional skills, how many have you got in your classes? Because it may well be a challenge to do any one-to-one work. Oh my God, Shirley, 34. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. Right. But it is what it is, eh? It is what it is. But then again, still, in a class of 35, a 1-minute conversation could be transformative. It all depends. It all depends. And if you know your learners and you have predetermined your questions in advance, you've got that time to be able to then do it. Okay, you've just found, next bit about Naz. You've just found out that Naz has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. A learning support assistant has now been allocated to attend all lessons with him. So what do you think your responsibilities are as the mainstream teacher? Any thoughts there? Oh, great. Thank you, Zabia. Achievement coaches. I like the sound of that. Yeah. Yeah. Liaise with them. Yeah. Bring support staff into loop about objectives. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Can I ask the question? I know in schools, they have teaching assistants, and they work with the teachers and they plan structured interventions. Do you do any such planning Do you have structured interventions? Do you have a plan? Do you have a fixed plan you have with your learning support assistant that this is what I'm going to do in the session, this is what you're going to do? Do you have you know, ALS people in the sessions with you whilst you're teaching? Yeah, okay, thanks, Dora. Achievement coach. Yeah, okay. All right, guys, okay. Okay, because, you know, I've worked with teaching assistants and I've worked with mainstream school teachers, and we've helped to plan things like structured interventions for students with, you know, ADHD or ASD. And basically, oh, okay, you got individual learning plans. Thank you, Josh. Thank you very much. Now, guys, I've put on there a name of an organization called the Education Endowment Foundation. Sorry, not EFF, EEF, sorry. And they've got their own website, and they do lots of, it's really focused on the role of the teaching assistant and how they help mainstream teachers. There's lots of, it's schools based, but again, like I'm saying, you know, for me, I do delve into other modalities if I feel it can help my post-16 colleagues and my post-16 students. Okay, so please do have a look at that. There's some very useful research projects on how you can go about developing a structured intervention. It's just basically you're formalizing it. And I know that when I used to teach in full-time FE, I used to build in their roles and responsibilities in my session plan. And I would also, at any opportunity, I would have little chats and meetings with the LSA beforehand, and what we're going to be doing, and then we'd plan some kind of an agenda as to what we're going to do, and how also we work as a team. Okay, and for me personally, I really relished anyone who was a classroom assistant in my sessions in FE or in Prism, because the more we worked as a team, the more we were helping the learners. Okay, so having a structured intervention helps you to be in sync with the LSA. It's not just that the LSA has got their own things to do and you've got your own, because I know that's important, but then it's all got to be collaborated together. So if you have a look at has anybody heard of the EEF, Education Endowment Foundation? Okay, maybe not. Okay. Okay, that's fine, Josh. Okay. What I'll do, guys, I'll try and find a link for you. I'm making a list of things, and hopefully you might find, by learning from some case studies in how, because teaching assistants are commonplace in classrooms across the country, but what the schools do is they have a strategic approach to how they use them. Well, sorry, not use them, but how their skills are utilized, rather. That's what I meant to say. Okay, brilliant stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's now move on with Naz. My goodness me, what's next? You find out more about Naz. He has poor attendance record from school and achieved a 2 at GCSE English. His parents are both doctors and his sister is studying law at university. Right, guys? So you're finding this information out. Okay, now remember we said we need to learn about the learner. So this is what's coming out now. Now, what thoughts are coming into your minds now, guys? As this intelligence is now coming into your space. Right, he might feel he isn't meeting what's expected of him. Yes, Josh, yeah. So there's expectation to deal with. Yeah, brilliant. Oh, now you're on the money now, Joe. Paula, ascertain his mindset with a 1-to-1. Fear of failure, fear of success, inferiority complex. Do you know, these are really powerful points, and you are hitting the mark there. You're on point, guys, because we have got to, you know, for us to be able to work with our learners effectively, we also want them to have high expectations of the learning. But if they're coming to us with very low expectations, it may be worth having the conversation. Okay. Now, this comes to the example again that I've mentioned earlier in the session about a teacher. For her presentation, is she wanted to get her hidden agenda across, but do it through reading comprehension. So it's quite, you know, you might be able to show an article about expectations, and that way then Naz will learn about comprehension skills, but also have a better appreciation of expectations, and maybe maybe slightly adjust them so he engages more and he has a balanced perspective about his family members, okay? That everybody achieves, but everybody achieves at their own rate, okay? And that's really, really important. That's a really important thing. Okay, now you find out that Naz also has Asperger's syndrome, okay? Okay, so how does this information change your perspective, okay? So tell me then, guys, now you find out that he also has Asperger's. Yeah, anxiety is important, Thomas. Yeah, there may well be some anxiety by the student displayed. So will this information change your perspective now you know that he's also got Asperger's? Find out what he's really interested in and devise some tasks to support him. It doesn't, I'd still do one-to-one. Yeah, okay, fantastic. May have difficulty connecting with family and friends, feels isolated. And I know from my own experience of working with students with Asperger's syndrome that they may have some difficulty connecting with people, you know, maybe understanding some of the emotional content within interaction and reading signals and things like that. And that can be really important to, you know, to be able to ascertain. Yeah, fantastic. That's really good, guys. Okay, have we got any more on NAS? I think we do. Right. You are working on a question that requires students to read a text and then explain the author's viewpoint, supporting this with evidence. Naz gets so frustrated that you see him punching his head repeatedly. And as you approach, you hear him saying, I'm stupid, I'm effing stupid. Okay? So this is quite a real situation, you know. I've had students, you know, have these kind of outbursts, not just in prison, but in FE classes as well. So tell me this then, what would you do, guys? This is the power of now moment. What we do in that split second? Take him out the room and calm him down. Yes. Find out what makes him feel comfortable. Yeah. Time out. Yes, Zubia. Sometimes, you know, just say, okay, that's fine. Just you know, just stand by the window and don't say any more. And then come back to them. Just go back to them and see how they're feeling and see if their state's changing. Okay. Explore why he feels that way. Yeah, I think that once he's calmed down in a more reasonable state, then don't just leave it, analyze it, okay? Because the problem is that the issue is that if that happens, if that outburst happens and the student knows that the teacher's not going to address it, it may happen again. And there's no learning or understanding or awareness of the whole impact. So me being me, the practitioner, I don't leave any stone unturned. If a student has said that there's lots of underlying issues, let them calm down, zone, you know, get into the zone. Then when they're in a calmer state of mind, one-to-one, and just say, look, do you realize what you said? And again, your student may apologize. They may say, I'm angry, or I had this problem this morning, and so on. So lots of other things will uncover. But also they need to understand that, you know, this kind of behavior, you know, it's not acceptable, but we understand emotions get the better of us. But, you know, let me give you some tips and tricks on managing your breathing, your mindfulness, and also just be aware that this is the kind of thing you have to do in the workplace. You can't say things like that, okay, because you might risk getting sacked. So it's having those conversations at the appropriate time that are really important. And, you know, even though learners may have difficulties, they all still need equality, because they all still need to be shown the way to effective ways of working, effective ways of behaving and studying that's going to be appropriate. You know, unless there is some incapacity issue that they can't, then we have to work with that, okay? But if they are able to understand in different ways, this is how we're going to be able to get the impact that we need from them. So we've got some really good points here. Josh, no, Shirley, no, right, yeah, sorry, let's go out. Yeah, Zubia said time out. Dorrit said explore why he feels that way. Yeah, sit with him so we're on the same equal level. Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, I've used that and it helps them to calm down. Also, suppress any reaction from the class. You know, the learners, you know, so sometimes they might find it entertaining and start laughing, and you want to contain that. You want to, you know, nip that in the bud. Otherwise it just becomes chaotic and you don't want that. And remember this, guys, it's your class, you are in charge, you're the boss, you're the leader, and all the interactions have an impact. So when these things happen, it's got to be nipped in the bud and show your leadership at that point that the teacher's not to mess about with, and he or she's dealing with it, and then he or she's also dealing with the situation as well. Yes, Joe, down at the level, fantastic. Not make a scene, show him the targets he's hit during the year. That's brilliant. I love that. You know, thank you, Liz. You know, just remind him. Now, Liz, what you're pointing to is what we call in neuro-linguistic programming, the circle of confidence, okay? When you use a circle of confidence, and I use it a lot in my conversational patterns with students, with all students, regardless of difficulties or not. And basically, when they're feeling frustrated or down, they don't get it, you remind them of what they can do, what they did before, and how brilliant they've been, and how much potential they've got. That will really help them to get unstuck in a session. And it can happen to anybody. It happens to anyone, but that's really good. So circle of confidence, tell the class to carry on and ask to speak to Naz, give him time out, ask him where the outbursts has come from, reflect reasons. Thank you, Siobhan. That's really good. That's amazing. Really good stuff. And Josh, you saying, sometimes the things that we pick up passively in life, I don't think our learners are always doing the same. I guess it's easy to take for granted things that we think are obvious, which certainly might not be obvious to neurodiverse students, not hitting yourself in class. That's so powerful, Josh. Thank you. That's really important, because you're right. You know, through our own life journeys, we've learned things like, you know, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. But then it's not because the neurodiverse students want to be inappropriate. That's not their intention. That's all they know. So if that's all they know, there's an opportunity for them to learn other techniques and just raise their awareness. That's all it is. And giving them options, okay? What's going to work? And I tend to find that with students that I've worked with in the kind of neurodiverse paradigm is you do have to explain things very clearly. You have to show them. You have to explain. You have to be quite demonstrative as well. And also, what's also powerful, and I found this really works actually. I mean, this is as an examiner for SEND students. Again, when I go to a residential college, you know, like a SEND place, and I've got one, and I'm in the middle of doing some speaking assessment with a student, but one student says, I can't do this, I'm terrible at it. And then before I can show support, the other students wade in and say, come on, Michael, you've done this, you've been brilliant at it. And then the teachers, the SEND teachers, are also encouraging as well, okay? It's so important to pick those people up in the moment, and also to say, like, you know, it's okay, it's fine, it's all right, these things happen. But then we can show them the way, you know, we can give them more ideas and more thoughts. Brilliant stuff, my goodness me. Okay, any more on Naz? I think this is the last one now. But you thought, oh my God. Can I ask, please, is this a typical student that you work with Nottingham College? How many Nazes do you have in the class? Pardon my sense of humour, it's a bit warped sometimes. Naz's initial assessment has placed him easily at level 2 maths and level 2 English. How would you use this information to motivate? My goodness, after all these things, he's a level 2. So, how would you use that information to motivate him? Lots. Okay, thank you, Dorette. Thank you, Shirley. Oh God, oh my God, he's a legend. I love him. I love students like Naz. Thank you. Perhaps it was a false diagnostic. Now, how much time have you got, Paul, about diagnostics? Can I ask you guys, are you using BCARE or 4Skills, or are you using some electronic format? Which one, or have you got your own free, have you got like your own version, a bespoke? Skills, oh sorry, it's called Skills Forward now, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I use Skills Forward now. You know, I use them with learners that I work with, you know, with work-based learning organizations, and we use that. Because the thing is, guys, you know, the electronic devices, again, you know, they've got their advantages, but they've definitely got the limitations. It doesn't give you the full sense. But, you know, things like if you can get your learners to do the multiple intelligences, okay, because learners within the SEND arena Some of them are brilliant at singing and music, okay, and performing. I don't know whether in your college, I don't know whether guys are representing SLDD at Nottingham College, but in one college I used to work in the West Midlands, the SLDD department used to put up 2 drama shows. So you get one at Christmas and one in the summer. And honestly, I'd be in tears because it would be so wonderful to see them, you know, performing and to be able to, you know, to be able to express themselves. So, you know, you may well find that you might find some hidden talents from the learners by doing a multiple intelligence questionnaire with them. And where are they orientated towards? That way then, you can then plan more things for your teaching. Siobhan is saying, I would focus on how positive the result is and I would set targets with Naz. Absolutely. I'd find out what progression looks like to him. What are the new steps? And also, guys, did I go through the literacy clock in session 1? Because I would definitely get Naz to do a literacy clock and maybe get his family to help him as well. Okay. Okay, Naz might like to know that he's very close to passing GCSE, yes, and employers would recognize it as such, and that's really good. Writing tells you more than the IA. I totally agree. You know, get them to do free writing, so important. That's so important. I mean, every single diagnostic I do, if I do electronic, I have to get them to do free writing. So important. Some of you prefer BKSP, that's fine, that's okay. But yes, it is an opportunity to find out more. And let's face it, guys, we have to use an assessment for learning framework like anything when we're working with SEND students, because we need to be open to learning more about the learners as we're checking their learning. As we check their learning, we learn more about them, okay? Now, all this information about Naz, it didn't just come up in one session. It happened over a period of time. I mean, it's not Naz. I mean, the name's been changed, but this is actually reflective of a real learner. So that's great, wonderful stuff. Okay, guys, I'm just going to now check on the time. Oh my God, time's going. Right, guys, okay, so it's nearly 1:30. Can we have a short comfort break? Yeah? And say, can we just start just before 25:02? Is that all right, guys? Yeah? Say about 5 minutes, and then we're going to carry on. We'll look at some more case studies. Did you find the case study quite helpful? Was it good to look at an example of a student? Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right. See you in 5 minutes, guys. Have a quick break.